Let me ask you a question. What's the one excuse you've been using for years that's still keeping you broke, tired, or behind? My mentor asked me that once, and in that moment, I realized every reason I gave for my lack of progress was nothing more than a story I told myself. In this video, I'm going to give you that exact question, the same one that broke apart every excuse I had for staying the same. And more than that, I'll show you how to use it for yourself. Because here's the truth. Most people don't stay broke because they lack time or talent. They stay broke because they keep protecting their excuses. If you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever wondered why your hard work isn't paying off, then this is for you. By the end of our time together, you'll not only know the question, you'll know how to answer it with honesty and how to turn that answer into change. See, I know how easy it is to hide behind excuses. I told myself for years, if only I had more money, if only I had more time, if only I had better luck. Maybe you've said the same things, but deep down we both know those aren't the real reasons. My mentor cut through all that fog with one question, and I'll never forget how it stopped me in my tracks. Friend, you and I have both been guilty of spending major time on minor things, of blaming circumstances instead of facing ourselves. But what if today you pulled back the curtain and saw the truth? What if one question could give you that kind of clarity? So here's what we're going to do. First, I'll tell you the story of the exact moment my mentor asked me this question. Then, I'll reveal the question itself, word for word, and finally, I'll show you how to apply it in your own life, so that every excuse you've been holding on to crumbles in the face of a new standard. Along the way, I'll share the same principles that turned me from broke and embarrassed at 25 into financially independent by 31. And I promise some of these ideas will surprise you because they run opposite to what most people believe. If you'll stay with me, you may find that today becomes one of those turning points in your life. You know, sometimes life doesn't change because of a big event or a sudden opportunity. More often it changes because of a question. Not an easy question, but one that strips away all the layers of excuses you've been hiding behind. I'll never forget the day my mentor asked me that question. It didn't come with fireworks. It wasn't delivered in front of a crowd. It was a quiet conversation, face to face, and it cut me deeper than any setback I had ever known. He simply asked, "What's the real reason you're not doing better?" And friend, that one question shook me to my core because it forced me to stop pointing at the world and start pointing at myself. For years, I had rehearsed the same tired list. Taxes are too high. The boss doesn't pay enough. The government's against me. My family didn't give me a head start. I told myself over and over, if only I had more money, if only I had more time, if only I had better luck. Sound familiar? Maybe you've had that same conversation with yourself. But when he asked me that question, every excuse suddenly sounded hollow. I realized that excuses blind us more than circumstances ever do. Circumstances are real, sure, but excuses are the fog that makes us stumble around in the dark even when the path is right in front of us. I'll give you a picture. One day, a little Girl Scout came to my door selling cookies, just $2 a box. And I wanted to buy them, I wanted to help her, but I didn't have $2 in my pocket. Can you imagine? Grown man, family man, working hard, and I didn't have $2 to spend on cookies, and I lied to her. I told her we've already got all the cookies we need. And as I closed the door, I leaned back against it and thought, what kind of story am I living where I have to lie to a Girl Scout about $2? That was the day I decided something had to change. See, the truth was never that cookies cost too much. The truth was I wasn't becoming the kind of person who could easily part with $2. My mentor explained it this way, Jim, you don't get paid for time. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And the marketplace rewards value, not excuses. That was it. That was the turning point. He showed me that change begins not with working harder on my job, but working harder on myself. He said, tear up that list of excuses, write one word on a new sheet of paper, M-E. And that's exactly what I did. Now here's why this matters to you. You may think your problem is your job, your boss, the economy, or your background. But what if the real problem isn't out there? What if it's in here, your philosophy, your attitude, your disciplines? My mentor's question opened a door that years of hard work had kept shut. Because I had been working, yes, but I was working on the wrong thing. I was working on my job, not on myself. And when I started changing me, everything else started changing too. So here's what I want you to think about as we move forward. What's the real reason you're not doing better? Not the polite answer you'd give a stranger, but the honest answer you'd give yourself in the mirror. Because until you confront that, you'll always be trapped in the same cycle of effort without progress. That's the lesson I learned that day, and it's the foundation of everything that came after. Here's something I learned the hard way. Excuses are comfortable. They're like an old chair, worn down, familiar, and easy to sink into. They don't require anything from you except to sit still and stay the same. And the truth is, most people would rather hold on to the comfort of an excuse than face the discomfort of change. Why? Because excuses protect pride. They let us save face when the truth would be too painful. They give us a ready-made answer when someone asks, "Why aren't you doing better?" Instead of saying, "Because I haven't taken full responsibility yet," we say, "Well, the timing's bad, the economy's down, my boss doesn't see my value." It sounds better. It lets us sleep at night. But here's the problem. While excuses protect pride in the short term, they destroy progress in the long term. You can't build a fortune on excuses. You can't build a future on complaints. Think about it. An excuse never produced a harvest. A farmer who stands in the field and says, "The soil is too rocky, the sun is too hot, the rain didn't come on time," may sound reasonable, and maybe all of that is true. But the farmer who refuses to plant seed because he's too busy listing excuses will still end up with an empty barn come harvest time. Excuses don't fill silos. Excuses don't feed families. Excuses never put bread on the table. All they do is buy you a little comfort today at the cost of hunger tomorrow. And isn't that the trade we all make when we hold on to excuses? We trade the short-term ease of explaining ourselves for the long-term pain of staying the same. Now let me tell you the truth that hit me like a hammer. There are only two kinds of pain in life. There's the pain of discipline and there's the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Discipline asks you to get up early, to read the books, to make the calls, to set aside the money, to practice the fundamentals. It stings, yes, but it's light compared to what you get in return. Regret, on the other hand, asks for nothing today but demands everything tomorrow. It comes when you're 50 years old with nothing to show for it, when you've worked hard but have nothing stored up, when you've repeated the same year over and over and called it a life. That's regret. And that pain is heavy, but excuses trick us into choosing it. They whisper, "Don't worry about today, it's not your fault. You'll do better later." And then one day later never comes. And all you're left with is a pile of explanations for a life that never turned out the way you hoped. I'll tell you why excuses are so deadly. They're invisible chains. You don't see them at first. You don't feel them right away. They let you move around a little. They give you the illusion of freedom, but every time you repeat them, they tighten their grip. Say to yourself long enough, "I can't because of my background," and eventually you'll stop even trying. Say long enough, "I don't have the time," and you'll start believing time is your enemy instead of your resource. Excuses shape your philosophy, and philosophy shapes your future. That's why my mentor told me, don't curse the soil, don't curse the sun, don't curse the rain. Learn to plant in spite of it all, because the seasons are going to come and go whether you like it or not. The only question is, what are you planting? And that, friend, is the sobering reality. If you're not planting because you're too busy excusing, you're guaranteeing yourself an empty field. So I want to ask you right now, what excuse have you been holding on to that feels comfortable but is quietly destroying your progress? Is it the idea that you didn't get the right education? Is it that your parents didn't set you up? Is it that the economy is unfair? I've used all those lines. I know how good they sound, but they never paid a bill. They never moved me forward 1 inch. All they did was make me feel a little better for staying the same. And that's why I'm telling you today, excuses may feel good in the moment, but they cost you everything in the end. And here's the transition we have to make. If excuses are so deadly, if they choke out every seed of progress, then why do we hold on to them? Why do intelligent, hardworking people keep repeating them as if they were true? The answer, I discovered, goes deeper than comfort. It goes to the root. Because the real issue isn't your circumstances, it's your philosophy. And that's what we'll look at next. Most people think it's their circumstances that decide their future. They look at their paycheck, they look at the economy, they look at their background, and they say, "That's why I can't get ahead." And on the surface, it seems to make sense. After all, two people can start at very different places in life. One has money, the other doesn't. One has connections, the other doesn't. One grew up with advantages, the other had none. So it's easy to believe circumstances are the root cause. But here's what my mentor taught me, and it changed the way I saw everything. Circumstances aren't the root, they're just the weather. And the weather comes for all of us. What matters is not the blowing of the wind, but the set of the sail. Think about that picture for a moment. You put 100 sailboats out on the same sea, under the same sky, with the same wind blowing, and in a few hours you'll find them in 100 different places. Some will be ahead, some behind, some off course, some right on target. Now why? They all faced the same wind. They all dealt with the same tide. The difference was in how each one set the sail. And life is exactly the same. We all get the same winds: disappointment, difficulty, opportunity, challenge, success, failure. What separates us isn't the wind, it's how we set our philosophy to catch that wind. You see, philosophy is simply the way you think, the way you interpret what happens to you, and the way you decide to act in response. Two people can earn the same paycheck, and one uses it to invest, to learn, to grow, while the other spends it all on comforts, on pleasures, on things that vanish tomorrow. The paycheck was the same. The circumstance was identical. The outcome, though, was worlds apart. Why? Because their philosophies were different. One believed, I must pay the price today to enjoy tomorrow. The other believed, I'll enjoy today and hope tomorrow takes care of itself. And I promise you, tomorrow always shows up with the bill. I'll never forget what my mentor told me when I complained about my situation. He said, Jim, don't waste your time cursing the government. Don't waste your energy blaming the company. Don't point your finger at the economy. If you want your life to change your philosophy. At first, I didn't understand. I thought the problem was out there. I thought if only they would change the government, the boss, the tax code, the economy, then my life would improve. But here's the truth. They weren't about to change for me. And if they did, I'd still be stuck, because I hadn't changed me. The winds were blowing the same as they had always blown. What I needed was to reset the sail. Now, let me tell you something important. If you change your philosophy, you change everything. You change how you see opportunity. You change how you respond to adversity. You change how you use your time, how you spend your money, how you treat people, how you build your habits. And when you change those things, you change your results. That's why your personal philosophy is the root cause of your success or failure, not your circumstances. Because you can take two people born in the same town, going to the same school, facing the same economy, and 10 years later, one is broke and bitter and the other is wealthy and fulfilled. Did the economy give one man favor and punish the other? No. The same winds blew on both. The difference was philosophy. Let me give you another picture. Imagine two farmers, side by side, same size field, same soil, same rainfall. One works the ground, plants the seed, tends the crops, weeds the field. Come harvest, his barns are full. The other farmer looks out at the same field, shrugs his shoulders and says, the soil isn't good enough, the rain didn't come at the right time, the sun is too hot. So he plants nothing. At harvest, he has nothing. Did the seasons treat him unfairly? No. The difference wasn't the soil. The difference was the farmer's philosophy. One believed effort leads to harvest. The other believed excuses explained the lack of one. And belief is what makes the difference. Friend, I want you to really let this sink in. Your paycheck is not your future. Your boss is not your destiny. The economy is not your fate. All of those things may influence you, yes, but they do not control you. The only thing that truly determines your outcome is how you set your sail, how you shape your philosophy. That's why you've got to keep asking yourself, what do I believe about work? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about success? What do I believe about myself? Because if you don't examine those beliefs, if you don't test and refine them, they'll quietly steer your life without you even realizing it. And you might wake up years later in a place you never wanted to be, all because you never reset the sail. So here's my challenge as we leave this point. Stop blaming the winds. Stop cursing the seasons. Start working on the set of your sail. Because once you understand that philosophy, not circumstance, is the real root, then you'll stop waiting for life to get easier and you'll start working on getting better. And that's when the winds that once pushed against you will suddenly start to carry you towards your goals. And that brings us to the next step. If philosophy is the root, then how do you begin to change it? How do you actually pull the excuses out by the root and replace them with something that produces fruit? The answer begins with honesty, the kind of honesty that hurts, but heals. And that's what we'll look at next. The day finally came when my mentor wouldn't let me wiggle out with another excuse. He looked me square in the eye and asked, "What's the real reason you're not doing better?" And you know what? I had no answer. At least not one I could say out loud without hearing how hollow it sounded. Because the truth is, excuses work in our heads, but they collapse when spoken aloud. They sound convincing when we whisper them to ourselves late at night, but when the light of truth shines on them, they fall apart. And that's exactly what happened. He told me, "Jim, I want you to make a list. Write down every excuse you've been using. Taxes are too high. Prices are unfair. The boss doesn't see your value. There's not enough opportunity." Write it all down. So I did. And then he said, "Now take that list, rip it up, and on a fresh sheet of paper, write one word, me." Friend, I'll tell you, that was the hardest assignment I'd ever been given. But it was also the most freeing. Because until then, I was living under the illusion that my life was being controlled by forces outside of me, that my lack of progress was because of things out there. And he taught me that the truth was never out there, it was always in here. See, the mirror test is about asking yourself the question no one else dares to ask you. It's about standing in front of the mirror and saying, if I'm honest, what's the real reason I'm not doing better? Not the polite answer, not the social answer, not the story you've been practicing to protect your pride, the real answer. Because the mirror won't lie to you. You can fool the boss. You can fool your family. You can fool your friends. But you can't fool the mirror. The mirror knows. It reflects not only your face, but your philosophy, your habits, your daily disciplines. And if you stare long enough, it will tell you the truth, that you're not behind because of the government. You're not behind because of your boss. You're not behind because of the economy. You're behind because you haven't yet decided to take full responsibility for your life. Now, why is this so powerful? Because excuses create an illusion of control. They let us believe we've diagnosed the problem. But all they do is place the power outside of us. And when you give the power away, you also give away the possibility of change. If the problem is taxes, then you're stuck until the tax code changes. If the problem is your boss, then you're stuck until your boss changes. If the problem is the economy, then you're stuck until the economy changes. And friend, you could be stuck for the rest of your life. But when you take that mirror test, when you tear up the list of excuses and write me, suddenly you put the power back in your hands. And if you have the power, then you also have the possibility. I'll give you a simple example. I used to tell myself I couldn't get ahead because I didn't have enough time. That was my excuse. I don't have time. And it felt true because I was busy, I was tired, I was stretched. But then I looked at the mirror and realized the truth. It wasn't that I didn't have time, it was that I didn't value my time. I was spending major time on minor things. I was watching television, wasting hours, doing things that didn't matter, and then complaining that I was too busy to build my future. The mirror doesn't let you hide from that. It tells you plainly the issue isn't time, the issue is how you use it. And when I saw that, I had to stop saying I don't have time and start saying I haven't prioritized. That's the kind of honesty the mirror demands. And yes, it hurts. It stings. No one likes to admit they're the problem. No one likes to face the fact that they've been standing in their own way. But let me tell you, the pain of that honesty is nothing compared to the pain of regret. Because regret is a lifetime of saying, if only I had tried harder, if only I had taken responsibility, if only I had stopped making excuses. The mirror test spares you that regret. It gives you the short-term sting of truth so you can avoid the long-term agony of failure. And once you pass it, once you can look in the mirror and say, the reason I'm not doing better is me, that's when you can finally begin to change. So let me ask you now, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. If you stood in front of the mirror today and asked yourself that question, what's the real reason I'm not doing better? What would the answer be? Could you be honest enough to write it down? Could you be bold enough to tear up the excuses and replace them with one word? Me. Because that's the starting point of growth. That's the day your life begins to turn around. And once you've passed the mirror test, once you've accepted responsibility, the next step is simple in theory, but not easy in practice. It's the step most people avoid. It's the step of replacing excuses, not just with honesty, but with discipline, and that's what we'll talk about next. Once you've stood in front of the mirror, Once you've torn up the list of excuses and written down that one word, me, the next natural question is, now what? Because it's one thing to admit responsibility. It's another thing entirely to take responsibility and build a new future. And here's where most people stumble. They have a moment of honesty, they see themselves clearly, but instead of following through with action, they fall back into the comfort of their old excuses. They pass the mirror test once, but they don't let it turn into daily disciplines. And that's why I say the real bridge between excuses and accomplishment is discipline. Not luck, not opportunity, not even talent, discipline. Discipline is the glue that holds honesty and progress together. Let me explain it this way. Every day of your life, you're carrying two weights. One is the weight of discipline, the other is the weight of regret. The weight of discipline might ask you to get up an hour earlier, to skip the television show, to save $10, to make the phone call you don't want to make, to study the book instead of scrolling through distractions. It weighs ounces. It stings, yes, but it's light compared to what you get in return. The weight of regret asks for nothing today, but demands everything tomorrow. It shows up when you're 50 and broke, when you've spent decades repeating the same year over and over, when you've got nothing stored up in the barns of your life. That weight doesn't sting, it crushes. It weighs tons. And the tragedy is that people choose it every day without realizing it, because they trade the light pain of discipline for the heavy burden of regret. Now here's the simple formula. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. And the danger of both is that they don't seem to matter today. If you skip the book today, nothing happens. If you skip the workout today, nothing happens. If you waste the hour today, nothing happens. And so you repeat it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. And one day you wake up years later and realize that those little choices, those tiny errors in judgment, added up to a mountain of regret. On the other hand, if you read the book today, nothing dramatic happens. If you save the $10 today, nothing dramatic happens. If you choose discipline today, nothing dramatic happens. But add it up day after day, year after year, and suddenly you've built a fortune, a healthy body, a sharp mind, a good family, a meaningful life. That's the compound effect of discipline. I used to tell myself, I can't afford to invest. I can't find the time to study. I can't change my habits. But the truth was, I didn't need to conquer the whole mountain at once. I just needed to take one small step. Replace I can't with I will today. Maybe I couldn't save $1,000 that week, but I could save 10. Maybe I couldn't read a library in a month, but I could read one chapter tonight. Maybe I couldn't transform my body in a day, but I could do the push-ups this morning. Discipline doesn't ask you to be a giant overnight. It asks you to be consistent with the little things, because little things done consistently become big things. And here's the beautiful part. Discipline builds self-respect. When you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you begin to see yourself differently. You say, I am the kind of person who follows through. I am the kind of person who chooses progress over excuses. And that changes everything, because self-respect is the foundation of self-confidence, and self-confidence is the foundation of achievement. Every time you keep a discipline, you put another brick in the foundation of your future. And every time you break a discipline, you pull one out. So let me ask you plainly, what's one small discipline you can begin today? Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Could you read for 30 minutes instead of watching another episode of television? Could you put aside $10 instead of spending it on something you'll forget about in a week? Could you make the phone call you've been avoiding? Could you finally begin the journal, write down your thoughts, capture the lessons of the day so they don't slip away? Discipline doesn't demand that you do everything. It demands that you do something. And once you start, once you keep it going, momentum will take care of the rest. Friend, don't wait for circumstances to change. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. Don't wait until it's easier. The only way it gets easier is if you get stronger. And the way you get stronger is through discipline. Excuses will always be waiting for you, but so will opportunity. And opportunity only opens the door to those who have prepared themselves with daily disciplines. So as we leave this point, remember, the choice is yours every single day. Carry the ounces of discipline or carry the tons of regret. You can't avoid the weight, but you can choose which weight you carry. And that choice, repeated over time, is what makes all the difference between a life of excuses and a life of success. And now that you see how excuses can be replaced with disciplines, the next question is, what kind of disciplines actually change everything? Because not all effort is equal, and not all habits produce the same harvest. And that's what I want to show you next. The new foundation you can build once excuses are gone and disciplines take their place. Once I learned to replace excuses with discipline, my mentor gave me the principle that changed my entire future. He said, Jim, if you want things to change, you've got to change. Don't work harder on your job than you do on yourself. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. At first, I didn't understand. I thought the purpose of life was to work hard on the job, to put in the hours, to show up early, stay late, and grind it out until success arrived. But he explained that the job pays you a wage, and the marketplace rewards you for the value you bring, and your value doesn't grow by clocking more hours, it grows by becoming more. Your income rarely exceeds your personal development. That was a wake-up call. Let me illustrate. When I was 25, I had been working for years, and yet I couldn't buy a $2 box of Girl Scout cookies. Hard work alone had not made me rich. Effort alone had not produced success. What I needed wasn't more hours, it was more value. And the only way to bring more value to the marketplace is to become more valuable as a person. That means developing new skills, refining your philosophy, learning to communicate better, learning to solve bigger problems, learning to take on more responsibility. The marketplace pays for value, not excuses, and not just time. Think about two people working the same job. They both put in 40 hours a week. They both show up. They both go home tired. One earns minimum wage. The other earns $50 an hour. What's the difference? It's not the hours. It's not the effort. It's the value each has developed and the value they bring to the marketplace. And that value doesn't come from luck. It comes from personal development. That's why I tell people, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Because self-education is where you sharpen the tools that allow you to cut through excuses and carve out a better future. Now, I know what some people say. They say, well, I don't have the time to study, I don't have the money to invest in myself, I don't have the energy to develop new skills. And I used to say the same things. But remember, those are just excuses wearing a new coat. The truth is, you don't need 8 hours a day to change your philosophy. You don't need a fortune to begin self-education. All you need is to start with something. Read the books, keep a journal, listen to the lessons, attend the seminars, ask better questions, spend less time on entertainment and more time on education. If you'll do that consistently, you'll change your value. And when you change your value, everything else changes too. One of the first books I picked up after that conversation with my mentor was not about making money, it was about thinking. Because he taught me that your philosophy is the set of the sail. And if you change the set of the sail, you change your direction. And the books, the voices, the mentors, they help you reset that sail. They give you the wisdom to say, I don't need the economy to change. I need me to change. I don't need my boss to change. I need me to change. I don't need luck to show up. I need to show up prepared. That's the power of personal development. And friend, I want to make this practical. Don't think of personal development as a mountain you must climb in a day. Think of it as planting seeds in your own mind and character. One seed from one good idea can change everything. Maybe it's the seed of saving a little more each month. Maybe it's the seed of waking up earlier and using the quiet hours to study. Maybe it's the seed of changing the people you associate with so you stop being dragged down by negative influences. Each of those seeds grows, and over time they produce a harvest. And when the harvest comes, people will look at you and say, how did you get so lucky? But luck had nothing to do with it. It was the quiet disciplines of personal development practiced every day. So let me challenge you here. Make a list, not of excuses this time, but of areas where you know you need to grow. Ask yourself, what new skills would make me more valuable? What knowledge do I need to gain? What habits must I develop to be the person I want to become? And then pick one and start today. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Because once you start working harder on yourself than you do on your job, the job will improve, your income will improve, your influence will improve, but most importantly, you will improve. And when you improve, your whole world improves with you. That's the secret my mentor gave me. and it became the foundation of my success. Don't wish for an easier job. Don't wish for fewer problems. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. Wish for more skills. Wish for more discipline. Because when you become more, you attract more. That's the law of life. And that leads us to the next principle, one that governs everything else, the law of sowing and reaping. Because once you understand how to plant and how to harvest, you'll never again be fooled by excuses. If there's one law that rules over life, one principle that quietly governs our success or failure, it's the law of sowing and reaping. My mentor said to me, Jim, don't ever be misled about this law. It's as old as the earth, and it never fails. Whatever you plant, you will reap. If you plant excuses, you reap regret. If you plant discipline, you reap reward. And when I heard that, it struck me, because I realized that for years I had been expecting a harvest without ever planting the seed. I wanted wealth without planting the seed of value. I wanted health without planting the seed of discipline. I wanted relationships without planting the seed of love. And life doesn't work that way. The law is clear. You cannot reap what you do not sow. Think of the farmer. He knows this law better than anyone. If he spends spring complaining about the cold or blaming the soil or waiting for better weather, the summer will come and go and his barns will be empty. It doesn't matter how sincere he is. It doesn't matter how many excuses he lists. The law won't bend for him. And life is the same. You can say, I didn't have time to plant, or I didn't feel like planting, or I was afraid to plant because maybe the rain wouldn't come. And every one of those reasons may sound reasonable, but the harvest doesn't care. The harvest will not reward excuses. It only rewards seed sown and cared for. Now here's the sobering part. The law of sowing and reaping works both ways. It doesn't only multiply the good seed, it also multiplies the bad seed. If you plant neglect, you'll reap weeds. If you plant laziness, you'll reap poverty. If you plant dishonesty, you'll reap distrust. And if you do it long enough, you won't just reap a small crop, you'll reap it in abundance. Because neglect compounds just as much as discipline does. I tell people you can't get away with neglect. You may think you escaped for a season, but the weeds are growing underneath the surface, and one day they'll choke out your whole field. And that's what happens when we choose excuses over action. We delay planting thinking we're safe, but all the while weeds are being planted in their place. Let me give you another perspective. You can't change the seasons. Winter will come whether you like it or not. Summer will end whether you're ready or not. The winds will blow whether you curse them or not. The only thing you can change is what you plant and how you care for it. And that's why excuses are so dangerous. They make us believe the season is against us, when really the problem is that we haven't planted. We say the economy is bad, but there are people planting and prospering in the same economy. We say opportunities are scarce, but there are people creating opportunities with the same 24 hours we're wasting. The season isn't the problem. The problem is that we've closed the bag of seed and told ourselves a story about why it's not worth planting. Friend, the soil doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your background, your degree, your accent, your excuses. It only responds to seed. And that's both the good news and the challenge. Because it means anyone can reap, but only if they sow. That's why my mentor told me, Jim, don't wish for someone else's harvest. Don't envy another man's field. If you want what they have, plant what they planted and tend it with the same care. And that became a guiding principle for me. Instead of asking why them and not me, I began asking what seeds did they plant that I can plant too. That shift in philosophy changed everything because it put the responsibility back in my hands. So let me ask you plainly, what seeds are you planting right now? Are you planting the seeds of learning, books, journals, conversations with wise people, or are you planting the seeds of distraction and wasting hours? Are you planting the seeds of savings and investments, or are you planting the seeds of spending every penny and hoping for a miracle later? Are you planting the seeds of health, exercise, rest, nutrition, or the seeds of neglect, junk food, laziness, excuses? Remember, the law is not mocked. The harvest will reveal what you've been planting, whether you like it or not. Here's the beautiful part. No matter how long you've neglected your field, you can start planting today. Maybe you wasted years. Maybe you let the weeds grow thick. That's okay. The seasons are still turning. The soil is still fertile. The seed is still available. But you must start planting now. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until the conditions are perfect. The farmer doesn't wait for the perfect weather. He plants in faith that the sun and rain will come. And you must do the same. Because the sooner you plant, the sooner you reap. And the longer you delay, the longer you prolong the harvest. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let another season pass without planting something of value. Tear up the excuses, open the bag of seed, put it in the ground, guard it with discipline, tend it with care. And when the harvest comes, you'll look back and realize that excuses never fed you, but discipline did. That excuses never filled the barn, but effort did. And that the law of sowing and reaping was always working. You just had to decide what you wanted to plant. And that brings us full circle. You've heard the question my mentor asked me. You've seen how excuses blind you, how philosophy shapes you, how the mirror exposes you, and how discipline transforms you. You've now seen the foundation, personal development, and the law of sowing and reaping. The question is, what will you do with it? And that's exactly what I want to leave you with as we move into our final challenge. So let's pause for a moment and look back over what we've covered together. We began with a simple but piercing question, the question my mentor asked me that stripped away all my excuses and left me staring at the truth. What's the real reason you're not doing better? And maybe you felt the sting of that question yourself. Maybe, for the first time in a long time, you stopped rehearsing the same old answers and started realizing that your life isn't stuck because of what's out there, it's stuck because of what's in here. That was the first lesson. Excuses are easy, but excuses don't feed you, excuses don't pay you, excuses don't build you. They protect your pride for a moment, but they rob your future forever. From there we saw the real root of the problem. It isn't the economy, it isn't the government, it isn't your boss. Those things are winds that blow on us all. The difference isn't the wind, the difference is the set of the sail. And the set of the sail is your personal philosophy, how you think, how you interpret, how you respond. Two people face the same conditions and end up in completely different places. Why? Because one cursed the wind while the other reset the sail. And I'll tell you, the day you take responsibility for the set of your sail is the day your life begins to change. We talked about the mirror test, that painful but liberating exercise of tearing up your list of excuses and replacing them with one word, me. Because until you see yourself as the reason, you'll never see yourself as the solution. And once you've done that, the only bridge to cross is discipline. Discipline is the great separator. A few simple disciplines practiced every day lead to success, while a few simple errors in judgment repeated every day lead to failure. And the tragedy is, neither shows up immediately. They compound quietly, and one day you wake up with either a mountain of regret or a mountain of reward. That's why I told you, carry the ounces of discipline now so you don't carry the tons of regret later. Then we laid the foundation for growth. Don't just work harder on your job, work harder on yourself. Because the marketplace doesn't pay you for time, it pays you for value. And your value grows as you grow. Formal education may make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. And when you begin working on yourself, sharpening your mind, improving your skills, deepening your philosophy, the whole world responds differently to you. That's the power of personal development. And finally, we looked at the law that governs it all, the law of sowing and reaping. Life is not mocked. Whatever you plant, you will reap. If you plant excuses, you'll reap regret. If you plant discipline, you'll reap reward. If you plant neglect, you'll reap weeds. And if you plant effort, you'll reap abundance. The law works for everyone the same. The soil doesn't care who you are. It only responds to seed, and that's good news, because it means anyone from anywhere can change their life if they'll just start planting. So here's my final challenge to you. Don't just nod your head and move on with life as usual. Tonight, take out a piece of paper and write down your excuses, every last one. Then tear that paper to pieces. And on a clean sheet, write one word, me. Because when you take responsibility, you take back the power. Then, write down one small discipline you will begin tomorrow. Not 10, not 20, just one. Read for 30 minutes, save $10, make the phone call, plant one seed, and then keep at it every day. Because if you'll plant the right seed with the right philosophy, the harvest will come. And when it does, you'll look back and thank yourself for starting today. Now, before we close, let me leave you with this thought. If this message stirred something in you, if it woke you up to the truth that excuses have been stealing your future, then you'll want to watch my next video, The Bridge Between Goals and Accomplishment. Because here's the secret: goals alone don't get you there. Millions of people set goals, but very few cross the bridge that turns those goals into reality. And in that lesson, I'll show you the disciplines, the habits, the daily practices that most people never learn. Click here, and let's keep building together. Because, friend, your life is worth building. Your harvest is waiting. And the law will always work. The only question is, what will you plant?